I think that the contribution of both Ukrainians and Europeans to these documents is unlikely to be constructive. That's the problem. You haven't seen these documents yet, you said. We haven't seen them yet, but if there are relevant amendments, we will have very sharp objections because we have clearly outlined our position, which seemed to be quite understandable to the Americans. What points are you strongly objecting to? We're objecting regarding many points. There will be some completely unacceptable provisions for us, including on the territorial issue. That's what I think. Is that the one currently being discussed? The possible demilitarized zone in the Donetsk People's Republic? Not only that, but the issue of territories in general. It was actively discussed in Moscow. The Americans not only know but understand our position. But what will end up on their papers after these consultations, I don't know. It is unlikely to be anything good. The so-called Korean option. Is that an option for us for demarcation with Ukraine or not? We have never discussed this. We discussed various options regarding a long-term settlement. The Americans know about our approaches. But to precisely copy the Korean theme, it has never been discussed, as far as I know. Never. I haven't even heard of it. He also brought up elections under pressure from American colleagues. This is some sort of double dealing. He talks about elections while planning to use them to achieve a ceasefire desirable for him and the Europeans. That is, a temporary cessation of hostilities, after which they would resume. None of this will work out for him. Regarding Crimea, it's a solid confidence of 1,000,000% that it won't work. Regarding NATO, I think it's also 1,000,000% that it won't work. We hear many belligerent statements from NATO, but NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has outdone himself. He said that Europe needs to prepare for a war like the one our grandfathers experienced. Well, this statement is probably from someone who had time to forget what World War II was. Mr. Rutte lived in the Netherlands, after all. I studied in the Netherlands at one time. They themselves told me about the terrible ordeal they experienced during the fascist occupation. They had a few windows smashed and how horrible it was. This is in all seriousness. Meanwhile, the Dutch really don't like the Germans for this discomfort. But they don't know what the horrors of war are. They have no idea. Unfortunately, Mr. Rutte makes such irresponsible statements, simply not understanding what he is talking about. We, thankfully, grew up in a country where the memory of what it was, the horror, and what we managed to do to save Europe from fascism, is carefully preserved. Naturally, very sensitive topics are being discussed. During such discussions, it's usually very difficult to control time. Meanwhile, a meeting with the Prime Minister of Pakistan is planned. They don't plan to attend the ceremonial event arranged by the host, our Turkmen colleagues. And we need to hurry there. Did you try to signal? Well, yes. It turns into a sort of time pressure from all sides. It is being resolved at this very moment. In essence, he said that Ukraine would be preparing for war. Look, there were the Minsk agreements. There was a step-by-step plan. The signatures of all participants were under this plan. That night, Poroshenko's signature was there. When Zelensky won the election against Poroshenko, he came with slogans of peace. Instead, he continued to violate the Minsk agreements. He continued to drag time. It became obvious that no one was going to fulfill them. Instead of peace, he started to bring war closer with his actions on the line of contact in Donbass. Moreover, there was a direct infiltration of NATO specialists, entering Ukraine's territory, its government bodies. And the first deliveries of weapons began then. All this created a threat to the Russian people living in Donbass, because there was preparation for their extermination, not to mention the geopolitical aspects of this situation, and the geopolitical consequences for the security of the Russian Federation. All this in combination became a trigger for making the decision for a special military operation. Will we be satisfied if the Kiev regime signs anything under pressure and then sabotages it like the Minsk agreements? We won't be satisfied with this. So there must be a certain system of guarantees, not only for security, but also for the implementation of these agreements. The position of Washington is very important here. We see it as quite decisive. It's realistic and pragmatic. Europeans are playing their own game. They still seem to want the continuation of the war. But here we orient more towards our counterparts in Washington. What does it mean that Putin drives carefully? Like everyone else. That is, behind the wheel, for example. Well, he drives a car and likes to do it. Can you imagine that, for example, a car owner in Moscow at a traffic light might see Putin at the wheel? He's unlikely to see him.